today I'm going to be talking about J.R.R. Tolkien, also known as the father of modern fantasy. So J.R.R. actually stands for John Ronald Reuel, and then Tolkien. And he was born in South Africa. He lived there until he was 3 years old. Then he moved to England. He was also of an English family. And he was raised there in England by his mom, because the reason why they moved back to England was because his parents got divorced. So he also considered himself very much English, because that's where he grew up, and he was very small when they left South Africa. So his young adulthood and his experiences I thought were very important when it came to, talking about this, because he was a soldier in World War One. He experienced World War II and the Cold War as well, and these events affected him greatly, because we all know that these events were very horrible. They were on a global scale and also on a personal scale, very, very terrifying things to witness and be a part of. So he was actually stationed in France in World War One in the trenches in the front line. And that was where he started writing some of the first material for his books, because that was kind of his safe place and a way for him to escape the horrors that he was experiencing at that point. And that's also one of the reasons why he kept on writing, because it got him hooked, and he felt he really wanted to write a mythology for England to have, because England doesn't really have a mythology in the same way that the Scandinavian countries have the Norse mythology, for example. But yeah, also because he just wanted people to kind of have this safe place as well. Yeah. So what did he start with and why? He started with the Silmarillion, and then he moved on to the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. And the reason why he wrote about the Silmarillion first was because that book is really all about the mythology behind it. It's not really a fantasy book, it's just more of a timeline of how Middle-earth was created and what creatures got there when and all of that jazz. Whereas The Hobbit is very much a classic fantasy book, and really the first of its kind, where it follows Bilbo Baggins, this little hobbit who lives in the Shire, his home, and he kind of goes out on this unexpected journey. And actually one of the first things that we hear about in The Hobbit is the Shire. And the reason why we do this is, and why he wrote it like this, is because he wanted the reader to have this sense of home first before going out on the journey, just like Bilbo. And also because this was very heavily inspired by Worcestershire, which was his childhood town, and that was very much like the Shire and inspired by the Shire. And it was very dear to his heart, and that's why he also described it in this way that I'm gonna read now. So, that, my dear Frodo, is where I come in. For quite by chance and the will of a wizard, fate decided I would become part of this tale. It began as you might expect. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit, not a nasty, dirty, wet hole full of worms and oozy smells. This was a hobbit hole, and that means good food, and warm hearth, and all the comforts of home. So he very clearly here describes the Shire, and especially Bilbo's house, kind of as, very much actually as his own family house and his childhood town, because he felt very safe there, and that was kind of his safe place. And I also have a quote by him where he describes it: though a Tolkien by name, I am a Suffield by tastes, talents, and upbringing. And any comer of the county, Worcestershire, however fair or squalid, is in an indefinable way home to me, as no other part of the world. And then in my synopsis, I also have this, third quote, but that's someone else describing it. And basically what they're saying is that he the Shire is Tolkien's home, but translated into the world of Middle Earth. And, well, the wording that he used here is because he very clearly wanted to, like, he wanted it to come across to the reader that this is the home of the story. This is where you're made to feel at home, both, as a reader and the character Bilbo. Because he felt it, and he also makes it very clear at first by saying this is not a dirty place, it's not a nasty place, and it doesn't smell weird. It's a very nice place with a warm hearth and comfort. And again, that was very much, he's just describing how he grew up. And the symbolism behind it, as I said just many times before, it's the Shire is Worcestershire and Bilbo's home is Tolkien's home. And what I think about this, or like why he wanted to do this, was because, because of all these things that happened in the century, both on a personal level and again on a global level. Just everyone in the West and also just generally in the world were very afraid that a great war was going to happen again. And a lot of people had lost their homes and a family member, and they might not feel like their house was a home anymore because of all the horrible things that happened during all of these wars. And that was why he just found it so important that he wrote this mythology, and he wrote these books where the mythology went into it, and also where he wrote about the Shire, because he wanted especially the English people to come together and kind of get this togetherness again about something that they didn't have before, so they could feel at home again, because that was something that a lot of people actually didn't have after all of these wars. So that's what I generally think. So yeah, that is the end. It's a bit long, I know, I'm sorry, but I tried to shorten it down as much as I could. So yeah,